welcome back to another edition of the Fantasy Football Expo podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bob Lung, founder of the Fantasy Football Expo, and I am so excited. What a great night we have planned for you. We have our Friday night sponsor right here, the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, Sean Green, and everybody's favorite Ben Roethlisberger lookalike, Ryan Kramer. Gentlemen, as always, it's great to see you. Ben, Sean, always good.
Let's go.
How's everybody doing?
Thanks for having us on. Looking forward to an awesome Friday night. You cashed the minus 1,000 lock of referring to Kramer as Ben Roethlisberger. As you know, that, and who was the guy in the Raptors that you got?
Marcus Saul. I get a lot of Marcus, and I was going to say, if you're calling me Ben Roethlisberger, but then you're saying gentleman, you must be talking to Ryan. So. Thanks for having all of us on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all of you being here, all of your personalities. Always a pleasure. Guys, we're here doing this podcast series scenario basically for people to kind of learn about what you guys do. But let's take a step back in history. So Sean, we'll start with you. When did you start playing fantasy football? What year? What got you involved? Was it a friend, a brother, neighbor? How did you get started playing this wonderful game we call fantasy football?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm guessing. I mean, I think I played around a little bit in college. So
we all did. But what about fantasy football? Let's stay focused. Let's stay focused.
I like what you did there, Bob. I dabbled. I did some experimening in college.
Okay, well now we're even going way too far now.
With fantasy football, but I think I really got serious about it. Maybe or really got into it maybe like 10, 12 years ago.
Okay.
Had some roommates. We were watching, I'm originally from the East Coast, lived out in LA. And then, we would watch all the games at the same time. We got a bunch of direct TVs, the boxes, so we could watch Sunday Ticket and just stack all these TVs on top of each other, watch all the games. So that's kind of when I started dabbling with fantasy football. At first I thought it was pretty stupid. I did win a league with auto draft, which I was very proud of. But then, like everyone, the bug kind of got into me, and I honestly, I got pretty soon into the managed DFS. Season long, I got into DFS pretty early and really, really like that. So yeah, it's been a while, but started slow and then got more and more into it as the years have gone by.
Awesome. All right, yeah, Ryan, when did this all start for you?
The proverbial gateway drug. Although I think for both of us, we were gambling well before we were playing fantasy.
Kind of backwards, yeah.
For me, it was. I mean, I'm as Sean was telling that story. In my head, I was like, I'm pretty sure Sean was in a league with a bunch of us in 2005. So we'll call it at least 18.
Yeah, maybe.
Years.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I was a big time spreadsheet nerd, and I ran into a problem where I like numbers, and this is pre my current form, and I was really into baseball. And got into some early roto leagues in the baseball format. Honestly, probably senior year of high school. It was one of those where
3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This was probably late 90s. So it was a mail based organization. It was pre everyone having
things
email.
Have totally changed. And
the commissioner would mail out standings.
I thought you said mail at you were talking MALE.
No,
I was gonna say not much has changed in that.
This was mail, through the mail. One of the. It was as it was told to me. It was one of the more famous East Coast rotisserie leagues. I was in that for a year. I realized I was not that into it, and then kind of just got it. Then within a couple of years, Yahoo Fantasy Football kind of showed up, and that was what really changed it. And then like Sean, season long, still into it, still playing things like the FFPC and some high stake stuff, but best ball and DFS is my drug today.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, there's a lot of them out there. So obviously, like you said, fantasy football is definitely a gateway drug to the gambling world, good or bad, whether you like it or not. And that's where you guys are at. You guys have been just crushing the podcast system with the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. So one of you, whoever wants to start, if it's John, well, I guess we'll go with you again. talk about the initial ideas and how this sports gambling podcast network came into play, when it started, but also more importantly, where is it at today? Because I know it's very big. You guys have done a great job with it. Why don't you talk about the history of the SGPN?
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the guys that worked for us, CJ Sullivan, dubbed us the Steve Wozniak and Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs of parlays, because we started out in a California garage, just two guys passionate about betting on sports, and that was in 2011. We launched Sports Gambling Podcast, and year by year, the show grew in popularity. In 2017, we launched at the end of 2017, essentially launched it as a company. And then we started adding on the website, the app, a bunch of other podcasts underneath our umbrella. We got about 30 shows going right now, including our SGPN fantasy football feed, which goes year round. Highly recommend that if you're into fantasy. And I mean, it just started out as something we did as a passion project. And then, hey, we get hit up by a couple sponsors. You want to read some ads? Sure. And we've kind of just snowballed from there. We're calling to you from our studio that we built and put together here. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. It's been a a decade long overnight success, I think. Right? Like,
I know how that.
Yeah,
goes.
like, and even with you, the similar thing where I'm sure you put in tons and tons of hours, and some people may have just be hearing about the expo this year. Meanwhile, you've already laid the groundwork with these previous expos.
Well, I remember being at FSGA. I think you guys both pitched the same year, even maybe,
yeah.
Which is, and so I saw Bob, and he's basically, hey, I'm doing an expo, and we went that year.
Yep.
And it was like a fun time, good hang, modest crowd, and yeah, growth is slow but steady, and same for you.
No, definitely. So Ryan, how did you get involved with the SGPN? Are you one of the originals with Sean, or did you kind of come in later because he thought you were Ben Roethlisberger?
Well, yeah, the charming good looks. It started us doing a podcast, and from there it kind of just, like, the friends and family came many, many years later. We were probably grinding out the podcast for 5 years before we really brought anyone else on. And then, like Sean said, kind of spun off the network because we figured out that there are a lot of like-minded D-gens out there who might want to go a little deeper into some of the sports that we don't cover on our show, and kind of took advantage of that, built this community, and the rest. It's like a full-time job. We're inside an office with a studio, like. And as one of our full-time guys, college guy Colby always says, we get paid to talk sports. So, things are good, right? And I think for the main thing that kind of, I would say, like, for us building this thing, like that, back to that time when we decided to turn it from a hobby, us talking about football, to a company. It was about the fact that we realized there were other people out there that kind of like you probably did with the fantasy thing, that all want to talk about the same thing, and they didn't really have a place to go back then,
right?
In 2011. So, that was kind of the real genesis.
Right. Well, and you guys started, I always say a lot of the stuff that I do, I was doing it before it was cool. And that's exactly what you guys did with this network is you guys were talking about, even though gambling's been around forever, it wasn't cool until every state started putting in, all these sports books and legalizing the gambling within their state, and you didn't have to go to Vegas. And you guys were doing that long before that. And now here we are, as each state comes on and more and more people get involved. Obviously, that's why your place has grown, but you were way ahead of the game. And, there's something to be said for that, because I've been there as well with the consistency stuff. The Expo is really not ahead of the game. People just say I've figured it out, but I'm not sure about that. I think it's just good timing, but we'll take whatever it takes, And I
think it's always been cool, but now it's okay to talk about to your parents, and it's okay to bring out of the shadows.
Yeah,
Mom, Dad, I think we're gonna have to sit down and have a talk.
We're gonna come out. I want to come out as a sports gambler. No, it's really it's opened up a ton of possibilities. I mean, just like tremendous interest. And again, I know Ryan and I were super excited. Obviously, Ohio is where the Fantasy Football Expo is, and Ohio recently legalized. So, which is awesome for us. And another, we're going to be sponsoring the party Friday night. So I'm sure we'll be talking fantasy football there, and, getting everyone that's there to hang out. Hey, if you guys are looking for gambling content now that you're active in Ohio, here you go. And I'm sure we're going to be sweating out some preseason NFL action there at the party.
And I remember I think it was probably the first time we were out there when we hosted that sports betting panel.
Yeah.
In a fairly small room over there at the hotel. And the bright-eyed, like, young people, like, not to lean into the gateway drug angle, but they were just looking at us like, how do we take this information we have in our heads and get down with some real action here? Right. It certainly is. It's fun now that we can not just have a panel on sports betting. We can maybe even do some demonstrations.
Yeah, here's how you live bet a preseason game.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, and that's it. I mean, just like fantasy football, the more you dig into the details and find those slight little edges that give you some information or some not inside information, but good information that seems to be effective, is going to help you win more. And that's what we're looking for. I mean, it's no different than when I do the consistency stuff and I tell people, look, you don't have to use it, but I'm just saying I think it provides an edge that you don't get, that most people don't have. You guys are the same way. You're providing something that just a little bit different, and you're giving people that edge that helps them win more. And that's what it's all about, is more winning, whether it's gambling, whether it's fantasy football, or whether it's fantasy baseball, whatever you play. And you guys have, I remember, who was the guy that I met that was into WNBA at the FSGA in Detroit?
Terrell.
And he was
WNBA.
I think every one of the ones he told me he was picking that night, we just sat there and watched, and he just crushed all of them. Like,
yeah, we hit a pretty good parlay. I think it was at the Detroit FSGA conference with some of his WNBA stuff, some random baseball stuff worked in there. Yeah, and again, the combination of fantasy, it just makes so much sense. Like, so many of the diehard fantasy football players or content creators, they're doing these projections, they're doing all this statistical like modeling and research. And if you're just using it for fantasy, you're kind of there are way more opportunities to take those like good numbers you're coming up with and, use it for like your prize picks, your player props, whatever. Right. So yeah, we're all about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right. Well, guys, let's talk about the Fantasy Football Expo. Once again, SGPN is going to be the Friday night sponsor. We're super excited about that. Talk about any ideas, any plans yet that you've thought about that you're going to maybe promote, show off, whatever at the Friday night party as kind of an inside exclusive here on the show?
Yeah, I think we'll definitely be doing some fun giveaways, some merch, some swag, maybe even a couple dollars cash. Gonna look into the logistics of like a prize wheel, spinning that. Everyone loves a little action. And then maybe, and then usually I feel like most in previous years, there's a preseason game going on that Friday night as well. So I think we'll probably tie some sort of fun games or giveaways to that. And still
I'm
locking that in.
Some sort of contest parlay card.
Yeah, I think
as that would we think about this in real time.
So Ryan, imagine they come to the party. Hey, hey, can we we give them a link or a QR code, they fill it out. And it's like a 5-team parlay for the preseason. And at the end of the night, whoever does the best gets some sweet cash or merch.
Wow.
Or
I mean,
there you go. I love it.
I mean, it will be there with we'll have our full team.
Yep.
So yeah, awesome. We'll probably a little bit of smack talk for the actual football that'll be played later on in the event.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Will there be any lines on the cornhole matches?
Well, it would seem like an obvious thing that we could create some futures.
Now, I'm not playing this year, so last year's champion is already out. I've retired because I don't want anybody complaining that it was rigged or anything.
We all know the real story. It's that classic cornhole championship hangover.
Yeah.
I would say that would we'll have it. We will have a cornhole odds maker on
there you
premise.
go. Yes. Perfect. Yeah, I'll make sure
we
you
got
guys
the
have
sharpest
all of the
lines.
things ahead of time with whether they're a 1, 2, or 3 rank, and then you can rank the teams or put odds on the teams to win. And we could. I'm sure that's all legal down there since it's all part of the village. It's all gambling. It's all legal now
for entertainment purposes only.
Entertainment purposes only. Exactly. So, guys, let's talk about now. You've been to this will be last year was your first or second year? Second year. So you were there in 20. You weren't in 2019 though, right? Or you were?
No, I don't think we were like coming out of the pandemic was our first year.
Yep.
Okay, which is what most people, right? So you came to 2021. You guys had a booth, if I remember right. You were on the sports betting panels. Talk about that first year experience for those who are looking to come and be an exhibitor, be a part of this. Give us some of your thoughts on what they should think about, how your experience was. Did you feel that it was beneficial? Did it help you grow? Did it help you get new followers, new listeners? How was the experience from an exhibitor standpoint, but also from an attendee standpoint?
It was like a classic smaller niche conference. You had a lot of people that wanted to be there, mixed with I'd say some percentage of the attendees are just there to check things out and kind of check out the exhibits like any other convention. But there did seem to be a pretty heavily concentrated of people from the industry. Like you're saying, people that are wearing multiple hats. They're both a content creator, but they're a consumer of the content. And maybe they're even an exhibitor. So I would say a lot of very like the kind of audience you're looking for, people that are very narrowly in the demographic you're looking for, and a lot of people are eager to have conversations. And I would say that applies both like from a B2B standpoint, like exhibitor to exhibitor. Definitely have made some friends at at the Fantasy Football Expo, relationships that we maintain today, and then also just finding people to work for us, whether it's content creators or whatever. Like the opportunities in every direction, because everyone really wanted to be there and was eager to kind of shake hands, meet people, and find out how they could do what they're doing better in the space.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I would say as like an exhibitor, I would take a moment and really think about like how either like whether it's a merch thing or whatever sort of promotional item. Someone imagine your pitch, right? Like some guy comes by, hey, what is your sales pitch to them? What are you looking to collect from them? Whether it's a name, an email, whatever. What maybe what sort of thing do you want them to walk away with, whether it's like a card, like a mini football, whatever. Kind of think ahead of time and come up with a good plan as far as like, if you were walking around in an exhibition like this, what would you want to hear from the booth? What do you want to talk about? That kind of stuff. I think coming in with a plan is helpful. And really, I think what's coolest about the Fantasy Football Expo is that the shared language, right? Like you can talk ADP and you don't have to explain what ADP is, right? Or like
RIDP
IDP or redraft versus DFS. You don't have to explain that. So you can kind of skip all the foreplay in normal conversations and just kind of get right to the meat of it, which I think is fun because you can have pretty in-depth conversations without having to bore someone. And these are people actually do want to hear about your fantasy football team here, which I feel like most of the times when you're pitching that to civilians, they're like, oh man, are you going to tell me about your team? I don't care. But people actually care about your team at this event.
And I think you've done a good job of getting the right people to show up to kind of validate it amongst the industry. Yeah. And so I think there's very good access there as well. I think you have a lot of representation from both large and small players in the industry, and everyone's accessible and kind of, again, looking for that same, like, I want to just interact with my community for this weekend.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And that's certainly something that I try to explain to anybody who contacts me is, there's going to be ESPN, Yahoo, CBS Sports, but there's also going to be people that are in their first year. And it's accessible for everybody. The price wise, it's accessible for everybody. And that was the whole idea behind this, is that I was making this for us people. I call us the RB2s, the people that, we have full-time jobs. This is a passion. We just do this because we love it. And we've done it for years, whether it's 1, 2, or 35 like me. we've been in it forever. And so, I'm not going to charge $2,000 for a booth like they did at the thing in Tony Romo's thing down in Dallas. It's $375 for a booth, and you get to talk to could be 1,000 people obviously this year coming through. So, I wanted to be price conscious, but also, make sure it's a lot of fun and a lot of enjoyment come out of it. Not just the fantasy stuff, which is great. I mean, that's what we're there for, but, talk about the other stuff. So outside of Expo Day and the booth and that, talk about this Friday night party that you went to last year and now you're going to sponsor. Talk about the rest of the weekend and why people are really enjoying it, because it is a good time. You are always busy. I try to keep everybody always busy. Talk about that from an attendee standpoint of the weekend and the enjoyment that you guys have gotten out of that.
Yeah, I would say structure. Sorry, Sean. I would say structured as well as any convention that we've been to in terms of creating a lot of informal social time, whether it's drafts or parties or just hanging out on the field at Canton.
Yeah, the QB challenge events on the Canton field were really cool.
I mean, it's a dude icebreaker, right? Like anyone who likes football, what better icebreaker than to go down on the field
and then make sure to make time to see the Pro Football Hall of Fame itself. Like that was something that was really cool. I didn't expect to enjoy the Hall of Fame as much as I did. It's a museum, but it's a museum about football. It's really pretty badass and just a really cool, unique thing to the city of Canton. So not only is like the Expo fun, the city itself, and like getting to see the stadium, and they keep adding on new stuff there, and the Hall of Fame itself is a really cool experience.
And it's not that you're busy, but there's stuff going on the entire time. So you can kind of make the weekend what you want to make it. But obviously, just like any normal convention, you want to make sure you show up to the parties, because that's when you're
pace yourself.
Well, that's it's not so much for the partying, but for the networking. That's when people are definitely going to be. I mean, sure, the exhibit hall that's a great conversation, but some of the best conversations and the best kind of networking we've done has happened both at the Friday party and on Saturday. So I certainly think that's kind of like, I would say, the key add-on to this conference is everyone shows up for those things too. It's not like one of those where people don't show up for all the events. Like, people are there and they're excited to be there. I mean, no disrespect to Canton, Ohio, but it's not exactly the easiest place to get to. So these people are very, very excited to be there, and they're going to do everything.
Yeah, and I think also what helps with Canton too is everything's close. I mean, everything is 10 minutes away. Because I get a lot of people are like, "Why don't you have this in Vegas? Why don't you have this in a big city? Why don't you?" And I'm like, because lots of things, but one, very expensive, and two, to get to one side of Cleveland to the other, it's 45 minutes, and and not everybody has a car, and not everybody is so.
Well, in that first year, Bob, we had everything was basically in that one hotel, and then right down the street, it was where the party was. So yeah, I definitely think that it makes it easier, right? It makes it easier to kind of sell people on the idea of being in a small town.
Two things we are doing different this year, and I don't know if you guys have heard, the Expo itself will be inside the dome. So that can hold 5,000 people. So we're good there. And by the way, there's a football field there that we can throw balls around during the Expo. So we're going to have the trade show booth part in the back across the basketball courts, but the field will be open to anybody. We're going to set up the QB skills challenge there during the day. And we're going to have stages all around and all that kind of good stuff. And then the other thing that we added this year is that there will be a 22 passenger bus, party bus, van, whatever you want to call it, that is going to rotate all during both Friday party, Saturday party, and all day Sunday from the hotels to the event, so people don't have to worry about driving as much.
Awesome. Yeah, no, looking forward to it. And so the dome there is right next to the football field, right?
It's right behind the football field, right?
Okay. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, no, I mean, I can't wait. Super excited.
Yeah. And we'll be doing the flag football inside the dome as well this year.
Dome football.
One of our guys hates dome football. Luckily, he's not coming. He hates dome football.
It's not like we're not playing like arena football. We're still playing the same flag.
I like it.
even though we are doing double eliminations for those folks who didn't understand the concept of throwing a deep pass on the first play, like a lot of them did. But
for those who weren't at the conference last year, there some pretty hilarious incidents of teams getting knocked out on the first play of the game. It was it was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah. In fact, Denny Carter with NBC, they did it. They got knocked out like that, and I saw Denny at FSGA, and my one good friend that was there with me, I think you met him, Frank. He was in town with me, and so we're out drinking down in the lobby or wherever, one of the area, and Denny walks up to Frank and I, and Frank doesn't know Denny, nor does Denny know Frank, but Frank was at the games and he was one of the helpers, right? And Denny walked up and I said, Denny Carter. I said, this is Frank. Frank, this is Denny Carter. You may remember him as the guy that threw the bomb in the first play and they got knocked out. NBC Sports got knocked out. And Denny went, oh, you were there? I watched that. He goes, that was the dumbest thing
I remember watching. Yeah, that did stand out because, I think there was a pick six involved and then they got the ball back. Yeah, that was
it was ugly. So anyway, all right, guys. Well, thank you again for being a part of this. We're so excited about you guys sponsoring the Friday night party. Tell everybody where they can find your network, your Twitters, all that great stuff, and we'll kind of take it out from there.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter at Gambling Podcasts. Just type in Sports Gambling Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Can't miss us, and make sure to download the SGPN app. Again, wherever you get your apps, completely free. Tons of free picks, podcasts, and a bunch of great stuff. And see you at the Expo.
Brian, you want?
Oh no, that's it. Co-sign all of that. Excited for the Expo.
All right. Well, so for Sean Green, Ryan Kramer of Sports Gambling Podcast Network, I'm Bob Lung. Once again, thanks everybody for listening. Take care. God bless. We'll talk to you soon. Hey everybody, do you want to continue to learn more about the Fantasy Football Expo? Well then subscribe to our channel so you don't miss an episode. Expo registration is now open, so make sure you visit thefantasyfootballexpo.com to get your tickets now and come and experience fantasy football's greatest weekend in Canton, Ohio this August 11th through the 13th.